Hey kids, welcome to Rob's Red Hotspot and welcome to a new video series I'm hoping to do. I wanted to do a tutorial series. I don't particularly want to do a series that covers like how to get started in the game and stuff like that because there's just so many videos about that. There's a lot of great content creators. I personally recommend like Survival Bob is really good. If you want to start out, that's how I learned how to play the game. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. I'll try and do shout outs to the creators that I follow, maybe put some links in the video description as well. But I wanted to do a little bit more of an encyclopedic, not a tutorial really, but more of a descriptive encyclopedic series. So this video is going to talk about the different types of planets, different types of biomes in No Man's Sky. And we're going to go through each. There's 11 biome types, as well as a couple of overlapping kind of sub-biomes and stuff like that, or subcategories or whatever you want to call them. And we're just going to go through one by one and talk about, for each one, first of all, how to find planets that have a certain biome, what kind of resources you're going to find on those biomes, and just in general the advantages and disadvantages of, say, building bases there or spending time on them, what they're useful for in the game in a kind of pragmatic sense, because obviously everyone's going to have their own preferences in terms of which ones they find the most intriguing or beautiful or fun to explore, fun to spend time on. But I'm going to try and stick to the kind of functional, pragmatic stuff, and I'll also give a little bit of my opinion and stuff like that. If this video gets 100 likes, let's say, I will do a tier list as to which biomes I think are the most fun biomes to play on. I think that'd be fun. A tier list would be cool. You know, S class, A class, etc., etc. So the first biome we're going to look at is probably the most popular in No Man's Sky, which is the Lush biome. So if you want to find a Lush biome, you're going to go into your catalog menu here, and you're going to select either paraffinium. You could also go for starbulb, but I usually go for paraffinium because it's on the first page. And then that's going to give you a log mission here that's going to be locate paraffinium. If there is a planet in the system that has it, it will say target a planet and use C to scan for available resources. So if this is my home system, so this is the planet I have a base on. Actually, this is Paradise Planet. This is the first Paradise Planet I ever found in No Man's Sky. The freighters are interrupting. And so this is where I have kind of one of my home bases, I guess, if you want to call it that. So let's go take a look at this planet of Taliumin, which I've spent probably more time on than any other planet in No Man's Sky over the past few years. One thing I would say is that you shouldn't confuse Lush planets with Paradise planets. This one happens to be a Paradise planet. Paradise Planet is a lush planet with very few hazards and generally temperate climates, and a lot of people like these planets for that reason. They also, if you find one with like green grass and blue skies and blue water, they are the sort of most Earth-like planets. So yeah, let's just land here and talk about what kind of resources you find on Paradise planets. So if we go into if we scan the planet from space, we're going to see this as well, which we saw briefly there. I should have maybe shown you. If you scan the planet from space, you're going to see these resources here all the time. So you're always going to have starbulb, which is the unique agricultural resource, and paraffinium. This is a good opportunity to talk about the resources that you find on planets in general. So all biomes are going to have a random resource, which here is cobalt, and those random resources can always be one of 5 things. So it's going to be sodium, magnetized ferrite, salt, silver, or cobalt. Generally speaking, in my opinion, silver and cobalt are the most useful random resources, just because you can make money, especially early on. Magnetized ferrite's kind of handy because it's used for building a lot of stuff, and it can be refined into pure ferrite. And then sodium and silver are a little bit less useful. Sodium in particular is just kind of ubiquitous. You can find it everywhere. Silver, I guess it's okay. It's kind of valuable, but not super useful. Anyway, so Lush planets have starbulb and paraffinium. They also have nitrogen in their atmospheres, so if you find a hotspot going like this, you can see there's a C-class one there. There's a chance it'll be oxygen, or there's a chance that it will be nitrogen. And that's really useful for some of the advanced agriculture, some of the advanced crafting. You're going to need those atmospheric gases. So nitrogen is the one that you find on Lush planets, and the other thing that's unique on them, let me just go back to regular scan here, and I don't know if I can see one right now, I don't think so, maybe. There's a unique cooking ingredient on many of the biomes, and on Lush systems it is impulse beans. So if you're into cooking, I don't really do a lot of cooking in No Man's Sky, but impulse beans can only be found on Lush planets. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of Lush planets. Generally, people like them. They can be, they're pretty beautiful. They have bright, vibrant colors, generally kind of clear skies. If they have good weather. This planet, we can see here, it says superheated rain. I'm not sure if that category is one of the mild weather categories. It sort of seems like a misnomer because I've basically hardly ever seen a storm on this planet, like pretty much never. If I recall correctly, I don't think I've ever seen a storm on this planet, so it's a bit weird. But good weather, lush planets with good weather are very pleasant to explore. If they do have bad weather, they're going to use your heat protection. That's the hazard that they're going to have. They'll have like superheated storms or whatever. Heat protection is the most versatile hazard protection module in the game. There are, I believe, 6 biomes that possibly use heat protection. I think it's Lush, desert planets, or dry planets, or whatever they're called, the hot planets, the volcanic planets, some of the mega exotic planets, as well as some of the extreme marsh planets. So I think that's 6 biome types that use just one module here. So if you're playing on like survival mode or permadeath and you want to save on your inventory, or even if you're in normal mode and you're just in the early game and you just don't want to install all these bloody modules that take up half of your inventory, you don't have any cargo space or anything like that, being on a planet that uses the heat protection is very advantageous. In terms of the resources, paraffinium is not a super useful resource. It does allow you to build the exocraft station. So if you are starting a new file and you want to jump into exocrafts really, really early on, if you happen to start on a Lush planet, it's not a bad idea to pick up, maybe a couple hundred units of paraffinium if you find a deposit nearby where you start once you get the terrain manipulator, because that'll allow you to drop down one of the exocraft stations, summoning stations, but or whatever it's called, the geobase. It's just the geobase for a couple of the exocraft that use it. But other than that, it's not useless. It's not very useful. It's not used to recharge anything. It's not very valuable. I would say overall, Lush planets are not the most useful in terms of collecting resources, but they're a pleasant planet to hang around. They also, I believe, I've read in several places, and I haven't seen any kind of statistical confirmation of this, but they supposedly are the most likely to have, they have the most variety in the number of creatures on them. I think that's true. I think that's been confirmed. That might just be kind of a bias that the community has, but I haven't seen any kind of hard evidence on the wiki or any other documentation I've seen, but there is a general sense that they have some of the most interesting critters. So if you're looking for pets, they're not a bad place to hang out as well. One thing I would say is I'm not a big fan of Lush planets that have bad weather, partly because I really don't like the sound effect of the planets when they're raining, and there's this squishy ground sound effect. Once we get to a toxic planet, I'll show you that sound effect. I really just don't like it. I find it super annoying for some reason, so that's just a personal opinion. They're fairly common. Lush planets are fairly common in normal galaxies. They're less common in empty galaxies, that's what it is. If you look on the galaxy page or the biomes page of the No Man's Sky wiki, which I will link in the video description, you'll have all of the likelihood of finding certain planets in certain systems and stuff like that. Next up, let's go on to toxic planets. To find toxic planets, we're going to go back to the catalog here, and we're going to select ammonia. Ammonia is the localized earth element that is found on those planets. And you can see here there is one in this system. I think it's that one over there, if I recall correctly. So let's just hang tight. I just got to get closer so I can scan it from space. So yeah, you can see here a poisonous planet. Just pause here for a second to talk about the description you're going to get when you scan from space like this. what you're going to see in this is, again, the random resource, which on this planet is magnetized ferrite. Again, that's kind of a semi-useful resource. Copper, which is because we're in a yellow system. So if we were in a red system, it would be cadmium. If we were in a green system, it would be emerald. If we were in a red system, it would be, our blue system, it would be indium. I think I got that right. You'll also see things like ancient bones or aggressive sentinels or extreme weather or different things like that, which I'm not really going to cover in this video. And yeah, fungal mold and ammonia. Fungal mold is the unique agricultural resource that you find on these, and ammonia is the localized earth elements. So yeah, this is the squishy sound I was talking about. I really don't like that sound, and all toxic planets make that sound, as well as the kind of stormy lush planets, so not a big fan of that sound, but that's just a personal thing. Maybe you like it. Alright, let's talk about the resources that are on here. So we said ammonia and fungal mold. The atmosphere has the same atmospheric gas as lush planets, so that's nitrogen. So personally, if I'm not a big fan of toxic planets, so personally, if I'm going to be looking for nitrogen, I would rather set up like an atmosphere harvester or one of the gas extractors on a nice lush planet for my nitrogen, but you can also get that here. The unique food, the plant, I guess, whatever, the edible plant or whatever you want to call it, is jade peas. Oh, there we go. Let's just refill that. Let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of toxic planets. Ammonia is really not a very useful resource. I find like the only thing it's really used for is recharging toxic protection, as well as I think you build the atmosphere harvester with it, if I recall correctly, which is kind of like the atmosphere harvester. There's really no point in using it if you have like the scanning equipment. Like if you're gonna find like a nitrogen cloud or whatever, or an oxygen cloud, or I guess you can just build one of the harvesters, so you don't really need ammonia for much of anything. It's not used for recharging anything. Yeah, so I find the resources on these planets kind of lackluster. I guess if you like the look of them, they have this kind of, I guess poisonous look to them with mushrooms everywhere. They're kind of neat. In a certain sense. Personally, not a huge fan though. Toxic protection is a reasonably useful module. It is used on 3 planet types, I think. I'm trying to remember now. It's toxic planets, some of the mega exotic planets, I think, as well as some marsh planets are sort of like a toxic subtype. So it's not the worst thing to install in your exosuit if you like spending time on those 3 planet types. And it's it's fairly versatile. Also, toxic protection is used against hazardous flora, so it's not the least useful of the upgrades. So yeah, there's advantages to toxic planets for sure, but I don't love the resources on them, and I just don't, like I said, I really just don't like this sound effect. So if I start on one of these planets, I tend to want to get off it as quickly as possible. Next up, we're going to head over to radioactive planets. So let's go back into our catalog here. Right now we're covering off the 5 kind of, I guess, elemental planets, if you want to call them that, the ones that are kind of sorted by their localized earth elements. So we'll hit uranium, which is the localized earth element of radioactive planets. Yeah, locate uranium, okay, in the galaxy map. So there isn't one in this system, so we have to go to the galaxy map, and you can see if you select as your destination, if you have like another mission running, then you may have to switch over to this using the left and right arrow keys. I don't know what it is on a console because I have not played consoles since the Nintendo 64, basically. If you select current mission and you have that pinned to your log, it will show you, I don't know if it shows you the closest system, but it will show you a reasonably close system that's sort of within warp range or whatever, or you might have to warp a couple times to get to it. In this case, we're just what is that, 14 light years away. So let's hop over to the system. I think I've probably already explored it since this is my oldest file. And then once you get into the system, you're going to scan around, and you know that there's going to be at least one planet that has uranium, and that's, I'm pretty sure, the only type of planet that has uranium as a resource is radioactive. But correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. So what do we got here? This is, nope. And then over here, that does not look like a radioactive planet. Could be, though. Yep. Oh, it is actually. Okay, so this is a radioactive planet. We are in a green system right now, so you can see that the planet also has emerald, and the randomly generated mineral resource is cobalt. So gamma roots and emerald are the two kind of unique resources that you get on any radioactive planet. Radioactive planets they're kind of neat. They can have some interesting plants, and they kind of have a funky look to them. They can have some very wild looking creatures and fauna and stuff like that. The other thing about radioactive planets that's really helpful if you happen to start on one on a new save is that uranium is used to recharge your launch thrusters. So it can be kind of annoying to build Starship fuel, because Starship launch fuel takes dihydrogen and metal plating. So you're going to have to run around grabbing ferrite dust and dihydrogen. And so if you do happen to start on a radioactive planet, you can just grab some uranium either as the secondary element in the rocks. You can grab it by using the terrain manipulator on a deposit. I don't know if we can find one here. Oh yeah, the unique food resource on these planets is gamma weed. Not gamma weed. Is it gamma weed? No, it's grawberry, I think. Gamma weed is the unique plant. Grawberry, I think, is the unique food item. I don't really know those very well because I don't really do a lot of the cooking in this game. Yeah, grawberry, there it is. So yeah, I think some of these planets kind of have a really interesting look to them. Some of them have an annoying yellow tint that kind of gets on my nerves. I don't super love radioactive planets. I have a mixed feelings. I like to start on one because it's great to have that. You can stock up on a bunch of uranium and use that instead of launch fuel. Radioactive protection is, in my opinion, the least useful upgrade. So I have it on just because I have like a maxed out inventory on this save. But it's really not very useful. It will protect you only on radioactive planets. There's no, to my knowledge, there's no other biome type that has a radioactive atmosphere except for the irradiated planets. The only other like radioactive hazard I can think of off the top of my head is doing the crashed freighters. I'm not a huge fan of crashed freighters, although some of the drops have gotten better for those in recent patches. So maybe I'll do more of them, but yeah, it's the only other circumstance in which you need these, and you don't really need them because you don't get that much of a radioactive kind of hit when you open those boxes. So yeah, they're kind of neat planets, but like I said, they've got this kind of annoying yellow tint sometimes. The storms can be really hard to see through and stuff like that. So yeah, advantages, disadvantages. I like them as starting planets. I don't usually hang out on these planets a whole hell of a lot. The atmospheric gas that you find on radioactive planets is radon. So that's, if you're doing agriculture, that's what you're going to find when you're looking for gas hotspots or whatever. But they're certainly not my favorite place to collect radon if I have a choice. The next planet type we're going to look at is our cold planets or frozen planets or whatever you want to call them. So once again, we're going to head over to the catalog tab here and click on dioxide, and it's going to, oh, it looks like there's a dioxide planet in this system. I think I saw one when we first entered. Is that, I don't think that's it, but let me just double check here. Come on, just let me pulse toward it. It's easier to scan planets when you're in the cockpit view, by the way. Oh, that's a Scorched planet. We'll be looking at that afterwards. What's this? What are you? Okay, here we are, Sub-Zero. Yeah. This is an extreme weather planet. You can tell because of the activated emerald on it. We'll talk more. I'm going to talk more about weather in part 2 of this short video series on the types of planets in No Man's Sky. But the resources that you will always find on a cold planet are dioxide and frost crystal. You can also see that this one has the random resource is sodium. Which is probably the least useful random resource. Also looks like it's, just seeing it from above the clouds here, it kind of looks like there's not a lot of land on this planet. It might be one of these kind of archipelago planets, and I cannot see fuck all. I don't even know if I can find a place to land. I might be kind of far from a continent. So the resources that you find on cold planets are, as I mentioned, dioxite and frost crystal. You also can get radon in the atmosphere of these planets. So this is, if I have a choice between, for a number of reasons I'm going to talk about, if I have a choice between a radioactive planet and a cold planet to find radon, I'm going to probably choose a cold planet for a number of reasons. Frozen tubers are the special food that you can find here if you're into cooking. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this planet. Now, obviously, this is an extreme weather planet, so... Oh, look, it's got worms, too. That's actually... It's pretty cool, man. That's very cool. We really lucked out. I'm just going to sit in our ship here and you know, watch from the outside here. Yeah, so dioxite is a great resource. Dioxite is really, really useful in the early game. It is used both for recharging your cold protection, so for hazard protection, you can use it for that, and it's also used for refilling life support. So super, super useful. You always need life support, or on most planets. Yeah, you pretty much always, anywhere where you're going to be moving, you're going to need to refill life support. So yeah, you can see here if you go into exosuit technology, where did I put mine? No, I think my life support's over here now. See here, yeah, you can refill it with dioxide. Obviously, sodium is not a bad random resource in a certain sense because it can be useful to refill your hazards on a starting planet, but later on it's pretty easy to find. Oh, there, the storm's clearing. Maybe we can step outside. Let's just watch the external temperature drop here. Obviously, cold planets are very cold, so you need to use the cold hazard protection module if you want to, you know, be on extreme planets especially. So cold protection is not, it's like not the best protective, it's not the most versatile. It's only used on, it's used on cold planets and desert planets, but it's also used in derelict freighters. So that's useful. Derelict freighters are, you know, there's a number of resources that you can kind of pretty much only get on derelict freighters, and so having cold protection is going to make it a lot easier to run those missions if that's something that you want to do. I am a big fan. I'm a big fan just visually of cold planets, especially ones that have like abundant flora. The ones that have abundant flora, I think, if I understand how this system works, are more likely to have kind of larger trees. This one seems kind of rocky, and also it's a bit of an archipelago planet, so it doesn't have some of the evergreen forests. But if you happen to find I do like the way this planet looks, though. It's got a great color scheme. If you happen to find a cold planet that has kind of more plains-like features or like just large open spaces, some of them have these like really cool evergreen forests that are kind of Earth-like in an interesting way. They're kind of Earth-like in an interesting way. So you can sort of, and some of them, the temperatures that, you know, the ones that have mild climates, the temperatures actually don't go that low. They go to like, I don't know, -40, -50, so they're almost like kind of the Arctic conditions on Earth, or I don't know. I live in Canada, so you know I've experienced some -30 weather and stuff like that, and you know, you can survive it. Not for days at a time, ideally, but you can survive. So some of these cold planets are really, really cool. They have a sort of Earth-like quality to them. I'm a big fan. They're one of my favorite planet types. Definitely if I'm looking to set up like a radon farming operation, this is my first choice over radioactive planets any day. The other thing I wanted to mention is that frost crystal, I haven't talked too much about the uses of the various agricultural resources that are found on these sort of 6 basic planet types. But that's because they've mostly, you know, each one of them is sort of equally useful in their own right, more or less. Some that, like, they're all used in advanced agriculture in various ways and stuff like that. Frost crystal, though, is particularly useful, especially if you like base building. I don't know if I see any right now. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So frost crystal's great because once you learn like a couple of crafting recipes, you can use frost crystal to make glass, and glass is used in so many building parts. Also, if you plant it or if you find it in the wild, it respawns faster than any of the unique agricultural resources. So it's just a really great thing to plant. I like to plant frost crystal. It's one of the earliest things I'm going to plant in the game because in a new game, because it just allows you to build with glass so much faster. It just allows you to get into some more interesting construction designs and have nice lit up bases and stuff like that full of glass. And yeah, just a great resource. So super, super useful planets. I love the way they look. They're kind of like, you know, Hoth planet or Arctic look to them. Big fan of cold planets. Let's move on to the opposite of cold planets, which is hot planets. So if you're looking to find a hot planet, I think they're technically called scorched planets in the game, the fiery ones or whatever you want to call them. You're going to click phosphorus, and that's going to find you a phosphorus planet. Now there is a chance that it will find you, I believe, a volcanic planet, or possibly even, not sure, possibly it could even find you one of the mega exotic planets, I think, but the most likely planet it is to find for you is a hot planet. And you'll be able to tell if it's hot or volcanic quite easily. Oh, there we go, scorched planet, yeah. Okay, so the two resources that are going to tell you that a planet belongs to this biome are selenium and phosphorus. So selenium is the unique agricultural plant, and phosphorus is our localized earth element, I think is what the game calls those. And you can see this planet happens to have salt as its random mineral. Salt, as I mentioned, is very, very, very useful. Scorched planets, so they have, or hot planets as I call them. You know, hot planets, cold planets, whatever. They are going to have phosphorus and selenium, as we mentioned. The atmospheric gas is sulphurine. And the unique cooking ingredient is fireberry, I think. I don't know if I see one anywhere near here. Fireberry, whatever. I'm not going to run around and find all the resources because I want to keep this video reasonably short. They're really great planets to start on because you can use phosphorus to recharge your mining beam. It's also used to craft, I think, the Infraknife Accelerator in one or two of the upgrades, if I recall correctly, which is currently the best weapon for starships. The Infraknife is, if you fully upgrade an Infraknife, it's just like, it's the best. Not a bad planet to start on, just because I would say, along with cold planets, hot ones are some of the easiest ones to start on. As I mentioned when we were talking about Lush planets, let's go into the, inventory is what I want. Heat protection is the most versatile protection, so if you're thinking about setting up a base and spending a lot of time in the early game on one particular planet, hot planets, kind of like Lush planets, are not a bad choice because you can then use that thermal protection on 5 other biomes. Six biomes in total can possibly need the heat protection, the what is it called, heat protection or heat damage shielding, or whatever they call it. As I mentioned, phosphorus is a pretty useful resource very early on, but then it becomes kind of less useful as the game progresses. I don't find myself using my mining beam very often in the late game, so, you know, compared to, say, having a ready access to frost crystal, like if you just have a base that's beside a clump of frost crystal, anytime you need to build something with glass in it, you just sort of hop over to that base, harvest all the frost crystal. It grows back in, like, I don't know, half an hour or something. Like, it's the fastest growing plant. So yeah, I don't find in the long term the resources on hot planets are super useful, mostly just in the early game. And I also, again, kind of similar to the uranium planets, and this is very personal, I get a little aggravated with the red tint on these planets when I spend a long time on them. I find there's something about it where it's kind of stressful. If you just want to chill and wander around and collect salvage data or scan creatures, it gets a little aggravating, especially when there's storms. There's something about the red tint that bugs me, but that's a very personal thing. They do look cool, though. I do like the kind of, you know, the look of them and the sort of flames that you get sometimes when you get those extreme events on some of the extreme planets and stuff like that. There's some very cool stuff that can happen on hot planets. So overall, I am a fan. They're pretty good planets. We've covered off 5 of the 6 kind of basic types of planets. The other type of planet we're going to look for is a desert planet, or dry planets, or whatever they're called, parched, or I can't remember. There's a couple of different names for them. Barren, I think, is one of the other words they use for them. So let's go into the catalog here again and look for, we're going to look for pyrite this time. And it looks like we're going to have to go into the galaxy map to find one, because this system doesn't have one. There we go. Yeah, it is sending us quite far, though. That's weird. I'm not sure how it does this. I'm not sure, because that's clearly not... I'd be very surprised if that was the closest system that had the resource. But anyway, it's within jump range. It's not a bad way. You can also, of course, just warp around between systems and scan planets. Okay, there is a freighter fight. I'm going to cut this out. Okay, so now that that's done, at least I got a freighter bulkhead from that. The freighter was no good. Now we can look for a, supposedly there is a desert planet, or a planet with pyrite in this system. I think you can find pyrite on one or two different planet types, so, but the most likely one is going to be a desert planet. So that's your best bet if you have your heart set on finding a desert planet. There we go, there's a parched planet. Oh, that one's got ancient bones too. That's really cool, actually. Now, this one does have extreme weather because it's got activated copper. The two resources that are going to indicate to you that it's without a doubt a desert planet are cactus flesh and pyrite. So let's go check out this planet here. The other resource that you're going to find on desert planets is, god damn it, this is going to be hard to land. Let's get down to the lower atmosphere here. Okay, there we go. All right. So yeah, you find pyrite and echinocactus on desert planets, and you can also find sulphurine is the atmospheric gas. The unique food that you can find on these ones is it's called aloe flesh. So there's that. This is pretty cool, though. I really like the way storms look on these planets. Yeah, so let's talk about the sort of usefulness of these planets, or in pragmatic terms in the game. Pyrite is a great resource, or a reasonably good resource. It's used to refuel your pulse drive. That's pretty much its only use, but that's just something that you're always going to need throughout the game. You always use your pulse drive when you're exploring, at least. You know, you're always going to be pulsing around, going from planets to space stations and stuff like that. So definitely a useful resource in the early game. You can also use tritium to do that, but tritium is used as well if you're going to run frigate missions. I like to run frigate missions pretty constantly, so I find that I need large amounts of tritium, and you get tritium by shooting asteroids. So if you have a source, an easy source of pyrite that you can just like teleport to a base, I like to carry around a big stack of pyrite to fill up my pulse engines and save my tritium for other stuff. As I mentioned before, heat protection is the most versatile protection in the game. Desert planets, though, are unique among planets in that they have a very large temperature variation. So typically during the daytime, what time is it right now? You can see the time. Oh, it's 6 in the morning, so we're daytime. So generally in the daytime, they will have extreme heat storms, and then at nighttime they can be extremely cold. So you do need, if you're on an extreme desert planet, you do need 2 modules, which is kind of a big disadvantage in terms of the early game. However, I find these are actually my favorite planets. These are my favorite planets. I find that they're really beautiful. If you find one with a mild climate, you often will only need one of the 2 types. Like maybe they have cold nights but temperate days, or maybe they have really hot days but temperate nights and stuff like that. I think I've seen both of those combinations. I just love the way they look. They kind of look like Tatooine or Arrakis from Dune or something like that. I'm just, desert planets are, I think, my favorite planet. I just really love the combination of resources on these. I love the flora, the kind of cacti. They've got some cool critters on them. I'm a big fan. They do occasionally have water too, which is kind of neat, I think. They do have like oceans sometimes. You can have this weird combination of like a really parched, dry desert. I think I'm not mistaken about that, but maybe I am. I'm not sure. Anyway, big fan of desert planets. Certainly, if I'm looking to set up a sulphurine base, my first choice is a desert planet rather than a hot planet. Although I also like hot planets, so a bit of a toss up there. Big fan of desert planets. So now there's 5 other biomes we still need to cover, and these biomes are generally kind of rarer and a little bit less useful, but also kind of cool. So the first of the 5 that I'm going to cover is the dead planet. Let's just see. So yeah, if you're looking to find a dead planet, your best bet is to go to either a red, green, or blue system. And then you can also find them they're very likely to be found in empty galaxies. That's probably the easiest way to find them, although it's not easy to get to empty galaxies. So yeah, if you were going to go to a red or green or blue system, obviously you're going to need one of the chromatic metal drives, like indium drive or whatever, cadmium drive, emerald drive, or indium drive. So we could hop over to one of these systems, for example. Or if you have access to another galaxy, then you can teleport to a base in another galaxy. Why don't we just hop over to this red system here and see if we get lucky? They're also less common in Lush galaxies, so if you happen to be in Eisentam or one of the other Lush galaxies, you're less likely to find one. I think we're in luck here. A lot of these look like they could be dead planets. What do we got here? Finned planets. That may or may not be a dead planet. No, it's not. The way you can tell it's a dead planet is if it has rusted metal. Let's call them. Those are exotic planets. We'll talk about those after. What do we got here? Dead moon. There we go. Yeah, they're pretty common. I think in normal galaxies they're like not super uncommon. It's really in Lush galaxies that you're less likely to find dead planets. They will always have rusted metal. They'll have deposits of rusted metal as well as a stellar metal and one of the 6 random metals. Dead planets have a number of interesting kind of unique features. This one sort of looks icy from... Yeah, this is one of these interesting kind of icy dead planets. So it's almost like a planet that used to have water and is now dead. That's very cool. All right. Yeah, dead planets are kind of neat in a number of ways. They have some disadvantages, practically speaking. So yeah, the only resource that they're guaranteed to have is rusted metal, and then the other ones are kind of random. They do, however, typically have low G environments. Interesting. This actually looks like it might be a weird hybrid exotic dead planet. I'm not sure if we're strictly speaking on a dead planet here. Oh, it did say dead planet, didn't it? Dead planet. Yeah. So this is a dead planet. I'm a little bit surprised to see those. I thought that those were actually more likely on exotic planets, but maybe there's some overlap. I'm not sure. Anyway, this definitely has a lot of the characteristics of a typical dead planet. The low gravity. Also, you'll notice if I stop moving here, your life support goes down faster. So I'm just walking, like I'm not even running, and you can see there's 2 bars. And yeah, so your life support goes down a lot faster. So early on, you want to be careful about life support when you're in the early game. That's definitely one of the disadvantages of these planets. The other thing is that they're never going to have any buildings except a portal. The only thing they're going to have is a portal. They're not going to have NPCs on them. They don't have any flora or fauna, so there's no plants. Even these sort of shrubs here presumably are just dead. They don't have any resources, so they just have rocks, and they don't have trees or plants. However, one tip, if you feel like you're gonna, I don't know, starve or whatever, this is done, I think, for game balance purposes, but basically, if you're stranded on a dead planet, a lot of the rocks will contain oxygen, and I think some of them contain dihydrogen as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you can get dihydrogen from rocks. So they're actually surprisingly easy to survive on them, even in the early game. The other thing that's great about them is that you don't need to use, you never need hazard protection on them. So that's super useful. You need more life support, but you don't need hazard protection. So kind of not the worst, even in the early game or on survival or permadeath or whatever. The other thing too that's good is that because there are low gravity environments, you take less. It's harder to take falling damage. Like you fall less quickly, so it's pretty cool. They're a lot of fun with exocraft, by the way. You can do like huge jumps if you drive around on exocraft. So they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool. Not the most useful in terms of resources, though. They don't have a lot of resources. They don't have NPCs. You're not going to find buildings on them. So if you end up in a system with like a lot of dead planets and exotic planets and stuff like that, it's really annoying if you're looking to find a particular building because you're looking for a specific thing, like say a portal or something like that. Although, do they have the monuments? I don't know. I can't remember whether they have the monuments that lead you to the portals, but they don't have a lot of the buildings. They don't have NPCs. They don't have trade centers. So yeah, it's a lot of disadvantages, but they're also kind of weirdly peaceful. The view you get of the stars, like they don't have clouds because they don't have atmospheres, so you get this like really epic view of the stars when you're on a dead planet. It's sort of like, you know, being on Earth's moon, I guess. And yeah, they're lots of fun. They're lots of fun, but I don't usually spend a huge amount of time on them. Don't usually spend a huge amount of time on them. They're just kind of fun to hang out on for a while, and then you move on. A lot of people like them, though. A lot of people like them. The next type of planet is a fairly rare type of planet. It's a bit of a hybrid type. It was introduced in one of the early updates to kind of add variety to the game, and that is the Marsh type planets. The easiest place to find Marsh type planets is, I believe, in green stars. There's a green star there. Is that a green star? Yeah, I think they're twice as common in green stars. I don't know why, but the way I have my monitor set up, I can barely see the difference between yellow stars and green stars. But they're pretty rare overall. I'm hoping I'll be able to find one reasonably quickly. Otherwise, I'll end up having to edit this video down a bunch. This looks to me like a Marsh like it could be a Marsh planet. The reason I think so is because it's got emerald, facium, cobalt, has aggressive sentinels, which is annoying. So there we go. This looks like a Marsh planet for sure. And we're getting a hostile scan. Yeah, I think this is a Marsh planet. Marsh planets have a weird mix of resources. They are kind of a hybrid planet between Lush and Toxic, which, you know, there's cool things about them. There's cool things about them. I'll show you. So you can see here we've got emerald, facium. That's what's tipping me off to the fact that it's a Marsh planet. And then cobalt is just one of the random 6 resources that can be found on any planets. So let's go down here and land and take a look. I think we're coming into a Marsh planet. Yeah, Marsh planets are kind of. I always thought they were inspired kind of by like Dagobah in The Empire Strikes Back. They typically, yeah, this is definitely a Marsh planet. Okay, so they typically have these kind of large, non-harvestable. Like you see, I can shoot this, but it doesn't give me anything. These sort of large, non-harvestable, tree stump-looking, procedurally generated plants. They've got the bad squishy sound that I don't like, so I don't like to spend a lot of time on them. But they're definitely cool to look at. They have qualities of Lush planets. Don't know what the weather's like on this planet. This one looks like its weather is hazardous moisture, which I think is one of the average weather types. They've got some very interesting creatures on them for sure. Very weird mix of resources. Sometimes you can have deposits of, like this one will have deposits of facium, I think. Yeah, facium deposits. You can actually harvest large amounts of facium on a Marsh planet. I don't know how useful that is. I guess it is sort of kind of useful. Facium you can also get from just like creatures by either like shooting them or feeding them and letting them shit, basically. And you can also find Mordite. Mordite is also found on these planets, but both of those resources are kind of ubiquitous. They're pretty easy to find. I don't absolutely love Marsh planets, but they're kind of an interesting You know, they're an interesting kind of gimmick type of planet, and I don't mind when they have a lot of trees. This one's pretty sparse, but sometimes they have a lot of trees and they really do have that kind of like, I don't know, your Luke Skywalker on Dagobah kind of feel to them, which is kind of a neat thing. I certainly prefer them to the more generic toxic planets. They kind of have some interesting plants on them. Some of the plants look like they're kind of lived in by creatures or you know, an ancient civilization or something. They kind of have this treehouse look to them. So yeah, those are pretty cool. In terms of hazard protection, they're going to use either the toxic or the heat protection, depending on whether they're an extreme planet or not. I think it's only the extreme ones that ever use the heat protection, and then the toxic protection is just going to be used on storms, on average ones. It's kind of always raining on them. They usually have like small bodies of water. They're kind of marshy and stuff like that. So they're kind of an interesting bespoke planet type. They tend to look fairly similar. You know, each one looks fairly similar because they all have these sort of large tree-like things on them, tree stump-like things on them. So yeah, they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool, but they're fairly rare, and I don't find myself spending a huge amount of time on them. Next up, we have volcanic planets. So if you're looking for volcanic planets, you could scan for pyrite or sulphurine. You can also scan for, can you scan for basalt? Let me just see if you're able to. Looks like it's like not in here, or it's possible that I just haven't found it yet. Anyway, volcanic planets or lava planets are more likely in red systems as well. So if you haven't found one yet, I think I may just have never harvested basalt in this save. Let's just jump over to a couple red systems here and see if we find one quickly. Volcanic planets are cool. They are another one of the kind of hybrid ecosystems. That could be one. Erupting planets. Yep, I think so. I think the basalt is actually only in secondary resources. I don't think it's actually in deposits on the surface. I just can't remember. I haven't spent a huge amount of time on volcanic planets because they're reasonably rare, although they're much more common in red systems. So let's take a look at this one. They all have pyrite on them, as well as a sulphurine. Oh, this is a weird one. This is very weird because it's definitely, I think it's a volcanic planet, but it's kind of an archipelago, which is strange. It's got red water on it too. What a weird planet. Let's see if we can find an actual volcano on here. Yeah, okay. It's funny, the wiki is actually not like totally detailed on some of these, so let's see what we have on this planet. I'm kind of curious to see if there's basalt as a secondary resource in any of the rocks or trees or anything. Yeah, definitely oh wow, this is hilarious. In 200 hours in this save, for some reason I've just never bothered to collect basalt. So there we go. That's why. So yeah, if you are looking for a volcanic planet and you never found one, then you'll be able to find one by going to the catalog. Or sorry, by the easiest way to find it is going to be just to get to a red system and start looking around, because that's where they're most likely to appear. Although I think they can appear in yellow systems as well. And if you have discovered basalt, then you could also locate substance here. But basalt is only found on these planets. They're definitely cool. They're definitely cool because the volcanoes are cool. The volcanoes kind of all look the same. They do have different color palettes. Some of them are yellow, some of them are blue, some of them are red. Like, they've got some pretty wild volcano colors and the look of the planets. This one is very bright, actually. I don't think I've seen a volcanic planet this bright. It's so funny that I'd never collected basalt. Let's see. They do use heat protection, which once again is the most useful upgrade here. The most versatile, anyway, as I keep saying. And yeah, they've got pyrite and sulphurine. So sulphurine you can also get on the desert planets or on the hot planets. Like I said, my favorite is the desert planets, but definitely also a fan of volcanic planets. I will say, in terms of resources, basalt is one of the most useless resources in the game. There is one upgrade now that uses it, and it's a good upgrade. So it's now not completely useless, but I don't think I've purchased it on this save because this is an old save. And there we go, we got a wall of flame detected, and those are pretty cool too. Sometimes you'll find that the ground is on fire as well. They do also have varying weather, unpredictable conflagrations. This looks like it's got like the average, the sort of middling weather, or it doesn't have like peaceful weather or anything, but yeah, definitely Wall of Flame has some really cool effects and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool to build a base right beside a volcano. I think you can even build a base right in a volcano. I'm not sure. I never tried. That'd be a cool thing to do. But yeah, not the most useful systems, definitely cool systems. Let's move on to the final two types of biomes, which are both kind of related, but they came in two different updates from what I understand. So we've got the exotic, there's another paradise planet, cool. We've got the exotic biome type and the mega exotic, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what the difference between those are. So we'll start with the exotic ones. Exotic planets are most often found in lush and empty galaxies. They're a little bit more likely in green systems, and they're much more likely in blue and especially red systems. Red systems have a lot of exotic planets. I wonder if the other planet in this system is exotic. No, it's a paradise planet. Okay, there's only 2 planets in this system. Kind of a cool system. I like those systems with like 2 planets. Let's jump to another red system and see if we get lucky. There isn't a resource that we can search for. Find me a red system, damn it. There we go. I've been pretty lucky finding planets so far. I'm not going to have to edit too much out of this video, which I'm glad. I wanted to travel along while I made this because I think it's more fun than just jumping ahead. Kind of show you, you know, in real time, or more or less in real time, finding these planets. So exotic planets never have water, so you're going to know that that's not an exotic planet right away. I think this system, once again, oh no, it's got more planets. Okay, what do we got here? Airless planet, so that's a dead planet. You can tell because it's rusted metal. It's kind of, sometimes it's easy to confuse the dead planets with the exotic ones when you don't know the names. Let's try this. Corrupted moon, selenium, cadmium, phosphorus, and salt. That's not a, that might be an infested planet. I'm not sure if corrupted is one of the infested ones. Let's see, what else have we got in this system? I was going to talk about infested planets afterwards because they're a subtype of biome. This to me looks like an exotic planet. Yeah. How can I tell? Well, for one thing, it's got gold as a resource. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that gold is only found in exotic planets. It's only ever going to be found in a deposit in an exotic planet. Exotic planets, I believe they were introduced in the Prisms update, but I can't remember. I can't remember the updates. What they call true exotic planets, and they're different from what we now call mega exotic planets. It's going to be actually kind of hard for me to find a mega exotic planet to show you, but we will. Exotic planets they come in about a dozen categories. So you've got the ones that have the beams, the bubbles, the weird bone spire ones, the kind of fractal ones, hexagon. They're basically like glitch planets, sort of. They're sort of also described as sort of glitch planets. Let's take a look. Yeah, this one looks like it's got this sort of bone spires going on. And they're kind of cool. They sort of, you know, there's less variety between them than there is between, say, different desert planets or different lush planets. So all of the bone spire exotic planets have this type of bone spire thing, and there's a little bit of variation in terms of their size and coloring and stuff like that. These planets also, I think, are one of the categories that can have chromatic aberrations, so you can have like a weird red filter or a black and white filter or something like that. I think you can have those on exotic planets. What else? What else? You don't need hazard protection on exotic planets, which is really great. The resources that you can find on these, you will occasionally find ones with gold deposits, as I mentioned, and then you're always going to get the chromatic metal that, or whatever it's called, the stellar metal that you find in the system. You can also find, where is it here? You can find a unique food on these. It's called hexaberry. Yeah, where is it? Hexaberry. This one has cobalt too, so it's got one of the 6 random resources that you'll find on any planet. Yeah, but other than that, they don't have a lot of resources. Like, if I scan a few of these, what have I got here? It looks like, yeah, ferrite dust and oxygen. They're kind of similar in terms of what they have to dead planets in terms of resources, except that they are more likely to have gold, so that's kind of interesting. They're less likely to have caves than other systems, though. That's an interesting plant life. That's pretty freaky, actually. I don't know if I've seen something like that before. Carbon and nitrogen. So they do have some interesting plant life. Huh. Yeah, I don't spend a huge amount of time on these because I do like to check them out. I like to kind of like land and say, oh, okay, it's one of the Bone Spire ones. And then each one of the true exotic planets also, I don't think I can see one right now, but we'll also have one of these kind of collectible, what are they called? Stabilized reality glitches, which I really wish I could find one easily here. Let's just jetpack around very briefly and see if one pops up. If you get lucky, you'll find them. They're marked by these like yellow kind of question mark boxes. Also, they do have fauna, unlike dead planets, but that's the fauna there. That's the living creature, apparently. But they only ever have one. So there's a kind of a neat trick you can do. It's not an exploit, but it's a neat trick you can do. If you go to the discoveries page here, you can grab 250 nanites if you just scan the only creature on there right away. So that's kind of cool. It's also really useful. There's a milestone. That's what I use these planets for in the early game. Planetary zoology. You can discover all species on 11 planets. Unlike dead planets, they don't drain your life. I don't think they do anyway. No, they don't drain your life support faster than an ordinary planet. So, oh, there we go. Oh no, floating crystal. Okay, never mind. I thought that we might have. Those are the hexaberries. They got cool music too. Yeah, they're basically kind of a weird, trippy planet that you can stumble on that are kind of very. They sort of all of these kind of glitch planets are sort of becoming part of the lore of the game. They have very interesting weather descriptions: haunted frost, sporadic resources, misplaced fauna, displaced flora. This one doesn't have any sentinels, which is nice. Yeah, but like I said, you can see you've got some sort of chromatic aberrations going on here. Definitely, sort of weird glowy stuff. They're neat. They're cool. They make some good screenshots and stuff. The stabilized reality glitches, or whatever they're called, are items that you can pick up and bring back to your base to decorate them. And they're all the same everywhere. That's the thing. So the RNG, the way that these work with RNG is a little bit different than ordinary planets. Certain things are going to be consistent. Any planet that has these bone spires is going to have, there's one, boom, a rattle spine. So let's grab this. I wanted to show you this. So that's what it looks like, and I can pick it up like as though it were like a personal refiner, and then it goes into my inventory here. There are, I think, 11 or 12 of these. And if you bring them all back to your base, you can actually use them as a base decoration. So I was gonna try and collect them all at one point, and then I never got around to it. So kind of a fun thing to do. Whenever you see one of these planets, stop on it. Once you get to know the different categories, and you can try and pick up all of the sort of collectible stabilized reality glitches. Yeah, in terms of resources, like I said, not very useful. I also find some of the chromatic aberrations, like the ones that have black and white filters and stuff like that. Again, I don't like to have a lot of like really heavy tints on planets. I find, for whatever reason, maybe it's just me, I find it kind of aggravates me after a while. Like I kind of like planets that have either clear skies or, kind of a little bit more Earth-like conditions. Overall, I get a little bit annoyed with sort of it's almost like you're looking through like tinted sunglasses or something like that. Maybe it's just me. So the final biome type that we're going to look at today is mega exotic. Mega exotic are related to the exotic planets. They are more likely to be found in red, green, and blue systems, although there's different subtypes of them. There's red mega exotic, green mega exotic, blue mega exotic, and yeah, those are the three: red, green, and blue. And then you can also find them more often in lush environments. Mega exotic planets, unlike regular exotic planets, can have water. This might be one. Scarlet planet. I think this is one. Yeah, I think we lucked out here. Unlike the exotic planets, they do have weather. They do have kind of a regular atmosphere. And they're kind of interesting hybrids. So if you're in a red system, they're going to have phosphorus. You can tell here because this planet has phosphorus, but it doesn't have... I don't think this is volcanic either. It could be volcanic. I don't think so, though. It has phosphorus, but it doesn't have... what's it called? Selenium? So no, this is definitely a mega exotic. Okay, yeah. So you can see here, this is a mega exotic, which is different from pure exotic. The pure exotic ones never have water. The mega exotic ones are like weird hybrid ones. So this one's got like this weird rain going on. It's got this kind of yellow tints. It's quite beautiful, actually. Like I said, the yellow tint, the various color tints, chromatic aberrations or whatever they're called, start to bug me after a while, but I like to check these out. Unlike the true exotic ones, they also, these ones have flora or lots of fauna. They have like a regular amount, like how many creatures are on this planet. Let's just scan one, and it looks like this one's got, oh, it's not going to tell me. Yeah, this has got 12 different creatures on it, so they're a little bit more like normal planets that are kind of overlaid with features of the exotic stuff. So they're going to have the hexaberries as well, and then they're going to have the random resource, which in this case is sodium. They are also known to have basically these gigantic versions of the plants that are seen on other types. And if you're in a red system, they can have phosphorus. If you're in a green system, they're going to have ammonia. And if you're in a blue system, they're going to have dioxides in terms of the resource that you find on them. So they're just strange hybrid planets with strange chromatic aberrations. This one's super weird too because it kind of, in some ways, has the look and feel of one of the fire planets, but then it's also got the stupid squishy sound that you get from like a toxic planet or a lush planet. They generally have a lot of features of lush planets as well. They'll often have things like grass and stuff like that. It's very, very strange. They're weird mashups of the kind of more regular biome types. But yeah, like I said, they make for some pretty wild screenshots. You can see here just how many of these wild plants there are. And there's got another type here. We've got two types. We've got the giant palm tree as well as the giant, I don't know what you want to call that. So yeah, they're freaky. They're definitely freaky. What else can I say about them? They can have bad or extreme weather. And the extreme weather you find on these in the green types, in the green systems, it's going to be toxic. In the red systems, it's going to be, I think it's going to be hot. And then in the blue systems, it's going to be freezing or something. I can't remember. But yeah, so that's the final planet type we're going to talk about. I have similar feelings about these as I have about exotic planets. They're kind of a fun novelty, but I rarely discover one that I really want to spend a lot of time on. I usually find that they've got some cool creatures, definitely, for sure. That's this weird wheel-like creature that seems to just hover in the air and spin like a floating tire. That's kind of creepy. Yeah, I don't know. I find, at a certain point I get kind of, they kind of get aggravating or something. This is activated cadmium, so it should have a storm, and I think it would be superheated. Strange though, I'm not getting storms. They do have storms for sure. They do have extreme weather. This should be an extreme weather planet. I'm just a bit surprised we haven't had a storm yet. Oh, here we go. Yeah, superheated brainstorm. Yeah, so those are the main types. There's one type I didn't talk about, which is a subtype of planet that can be applied to any of the 6 main types. So hot, cold, desert, lush, hot, cold, desert, lush, toxic, and radioactive. And those are infested planets. And infested planets will have a slightly different mix of resources. I think they've got like maybe more. They've got like more mordite and fascium or something like that. Not remembering. Infested planets also don't have life forms on them. They're kind of similar to how planets are in abandoned systems. And they're gonna have like any buildings that you find on infested planets are gonna have the what are they called? The monstrosities, the little purple eggs around them and stuff like that. So they also have the infested ones are also gonna have some really weird looking fauna and flora. Really, though, the infested type of planet, I believe, is actually weather overlaid onto a planet, if I'm not mistaken. Or it's a flora overlay. It's like flora and fauna. It can be infested, basically. So I'm going to talk about those more in my next video. So we talked about the 11 biomes of No Man's Sky, and I hope this was useful. And I'll be back soon with another video that talks about other planetary characteristics that you take into consideration as you play the game, both aesthetically and also, pragmatically. So I hope you enjoyed this, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. See you next time. Ciao.